So many of us should have been dead. So many things could have happened on your way here. So many things. You didn't have to be here, but the Lord said, no, not today. I stand against the enemy with you and say that you will stay here. You will show up. I see your heart. I was a victim of, no, not a victim. No. I'm not going to play the victim game. No, exactly, Victor. I got to see my God be God. I was helping the church. We moving the storage. On the way here, boom, got smacked by a car. Wasn't expecting it, but I'm still here. I got right out the car. I got out so quick, they thought I tried to leave. I said, I'm not going nowhere now. My God kept me here for a reason. How y'all doing, y'all? That got me all amped up, man. It's good to see y'all. First and foremost, I just want to thank God, first of all, for allowing me to be here day and day, dear Lord, for continuously saying, today is not your day. I need you to go out there and I need you to do work. So many times that I could have been taken out of this world, but the Lord said, no, I'm keeping you here. So many times that the Lord could have took us all out, but he said, no, I love you and I'm keeping you here. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful I can talk, walk, breathe, taste. I'm thankful for everything the Lord has provided me with, my wife, and also my pastors as well. Pastor Cal, of course, I love you and I appreciate you. First Lady, I appreciate you guys for trusting me to give the word today because you guys didn't have to, but you've seen something in me, even probably in times where I didn't see it in me or didn't know that I was good enough to do it. So I thank you for allowing me to bring the word forth. Now, lights is bright. Last time I was up here, I wasn't up here. I was online. So I got to take the little easy route, I guess you could say, it's online, but it still feels good to be able to stand here before y'all. And as y'all know, we are in a series called A Setback is a Setup for No More Normal. Man, what a series it has been. It has been a great series. We have really been able to see that our setback is not necessarily a setback. It's all a part of the setup. When we look at our situations and we say, okay, what is going on right now? It's just something being set up in the midst. Now, I know in our lives, we go through a lot of things, and it's hard for us to see the promises God promised us, the vision that God gave us, because we have all these things going on around us. And so now we're like, dang, God, is it really true? But if you stand up against it and you say, you know what, I know it to be true. I know my God to be faithful. I know my God to not be a person of betrayal, but a person who will stand against me, and no matter what the situation may be, and I can stand on his word and I can continue to love him. He will continue to be with me. All I have to do is push through. When it gets hard, all I have to do is push through and trust in the Lord. Now, it's two words that I want us to look at. And y'all don't have to worry about it back there. I didn't get it to y'all. But it's two words I want us to look at. And it's location and destination. Now, location, the definition is a particular place or position. But destination, two words that are similar, means is the place to which someone or something is going or being sent. So although in your location, it may not look like what it's supposed to be. It may not look like things are adding up. But long as you continue to look at the Lord and understand that he is sending me somewhere, where I'm at now is not where I'm supposed to be. I have a destination on the other side. And all I have to do is reach and claim the victory that's mine. So today, I want to give y'all my title, Victory. Victory. Now, we have to understand that a lot of things in our life, things get chaotic. Things that cause distractions, lies, pain, hurt. These are things that we all deal with in life that can sometimes cause us to be blinded, that can sometimes make us miss and forget the vision that was given to us. Patience and trust. Those are the things that we need to be focusing on, is trusting in the Lord, being patient, knowing that right now where I'm at is not where I will forever be. It's not my destination. It may be my location, but it's not where God is sending me. So I want us to look at Genesis 37, 3 through 14. And I'm coming out of the NLT. It says, so Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children, because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day, Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him. One night, Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him even more. They hated him more than ever. Listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field, tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly, my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around me and bowed low before mine. His brothers responded, so you think you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. Soon Joseph had another dream. And again, he told his brothers about it. Listen, I have had another dream, he said. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bow low before me. This time he told the dream to his father as well as to his brothers. But his father scolded him. What kind of dream is that? He asked. Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come down and bow to the ground before you? But while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what the dreams meant. Soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flock at Shechem. When they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing sheep at Shechem. Bear with me, y'all. Get ready, and I will send you to them. Now, I want to say something. There's things that God will give us that nobody else understands, if we even understand at the moment. But that's okay. It's fine. Everybody is not going to understand just yet. Now, it seems that God may show in the future in order to get them to understand or make it more clear to you. But one thing we have to continue to focus on is what God is saying and what God is doing. That should be our focus and not what other people are saying. Because when people tend to put the little whispers in your ear, like, do you think you'll reign above? Do you think you're good enough? Why God chose you instead of me? And try to make themselves above, it can then become a distraction. I want to look at, Genesis 37, verse 18. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. So y'all, I don't know about y'all. I wish I would have got the picture, but I found out that these cisterns are like these big, imagine almost like a water tower in the ground. It's this huge tunnel, dark place, and they can be filled with water or they couldn't. This is how much they wanted to get rid of him. But when Reuben heard of their scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. Let's not kill him, he said. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into the empty cistern here in the wilderness. Then he'll die without our laying a hand on him. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. They grabbed him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty and there was no water in it. Then, just as they were sitting down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming towards them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. Something I want to point out, I want us to go back to 18 and 19. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him. Now, I know what a lot of us are thinking. Well, Joseph didn't really have control over that. Joseph didn't have control over what his brother's plan was and his plans to kill him. And the enemy has three objectives: to kill, to steal, and destroy. So my question is, what about the things that we do have control over? Are we allowing those to come in and steal our happiness, steal our joy, to kill our peace, to try to come in and destroy our family? See, like I said, Joseph may not have control over that, but there's things that we have control over. There's things that we can come against. There's things that we can just speak on and say, you know what? Not today. I rebuke that. Some of the things that if we really pay attention to, some of our problems become self-inflicting. Now, I won't say, okay, the enemy played no partake in it. Okay, that's too easy. All right. The enemy can tell you, okay, you're not worth it. Nah, you're not built for this. I don't think this is for you. You're not qualified for this. And then we start to believe those things. So now the enemy has stepped out and you have continued to believe it. Maybe I'm not worth it. Maybe I don't need to be here. Maybe it's things in my life that's holding me back. Maybe the blood of Jesus really wasn't for me, but it was for everybody. And there's nothing we can do to take that away. Genesis 39, 1-7 says, when Joseph was taken into Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did. As he served in the home of his Egyptian master, Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administration responsibility over everything he owned. When Joseph was there, he didn't have to worry about a thing except what food to eat. Now, when we take a look at that, the main thing we see is the Lord was with Joseph. So he succeeded in everything he did. And not only did he succeed, everything that he was blessed with started to pour into his master's home. So everything may not be for us. The situations that were meant for evil, God can turn them around. Everything that was meant to hold you back can push you forward as long as you have the Lord within and the Lord is with you. See, now verse 7, excuse me. And Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man. And Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. This brings me to my point 1. Know the difference. Know the difference. Now, what I mean by this is know the difference between what's a blessing and what could be a curse. Know the difference between something that God is giving you and something that the enemy is trying to distract you and trying to take you away from what's already there for you, which we'll later see if you don't already know. So Potiphar gave Joseph but refused to look at her, my master. Okay, he said, but Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be great sin against God. She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day, but he refused to sleep with her, and he kept out of her way as much as possible. One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. Real quick, it says, no one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except for you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be great sin against God. This needs to be our heart posture. See, it doesn't say that he was worried about necessarily what his master said or what other people would think or if somebody would catch him or if they would find out. He said it would be great sin against God. So I want no parts of that. And there's some things in our life that we have to say, no, I know that's sin against God. I need to step away from it. Even if our flesh is craving it, even if our flesh does want it, even when everything seems like it's going good, oh man, maybe it's too good to chew. Some stuff, maybe it is a little too good. Maybe it's something that's not good for you. She called out, so after he refused and he denied, says she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. Look, she said, my husband has bought me this Hebrew slave to make fools of us. He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but he left his cloak behind with me. She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. Then she told him her story. The Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me. Leaving his cloak with me. Now, because of this, they then threw Joseph in prison, somewhere he didn't belong. All because he chose to just, you know what, Lord, I want to continue to please you. Even in the midst of where my chaos is at, even in the midst of where I don't belong, dear Lord, I still know you to be your true God. I still love you. I will still serve you. So I would deny it. So another question, are you willing to suffer for Christ? Are you willing to say, no, I'll pass? But the Lord was with Joseph in prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favor with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him. Again, we see the Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. If we keep the Lord with us, even in our problems, if we keep him with us, if we continue to believe him, if we continue to trust him, it's things that we own, it's things that we have control over that we didn't expect, all because of our obedience. See, this situation could have been a lot worse, but God said, no, matter of fact, even though this is where they thought that they were going to put you, this is where they thought they were going to hold you and keep you bounded at. No, I will bring you out of that. I will give you full, complete control. Words wait. It's things because we have shown the heart of God. It's things that because we have loved certain people. The reason why we have ownership over certain things. So now, in Genesis 40, it says Joseph interprets 2 dreams. Sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. So he threw him in jail, in prison, the same prison where Joseph was. Now, it says while they were there in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and the baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. Why do you look so worried today? He said to them. And they replied, we both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what that means. His response is, interpreting dreams is God's business. Joseph replied, go ahead and tell me your dreams. Now, look at here. The reason why he said, tell me your dreams. See, some of us may get confused, like, interpreting dreams is God's business, so why am I telling you should not be going to God? Well, see, God was with him. God was continuous with him. So he felt comfortable doing what God's work was because he knew at the end of the day, he would still get the blessing. All I have to do is be obedient. All I have to do is use the power and the spirit that he has placed inside of me to do his work. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. Verse 9. In my dream, he said, I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches, and the 3 branches that begun to bud and blossom, and soon it produced a cluster of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is what the dream means, Joseph said. The 3 branches will represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor. When things go well for you, mention me to Pharaoh, so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve this. Now it says, Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all his officials and staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer and chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker just as Joseph had predicted. When he interpreted his dream, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. So now what was supposed to be his life raft, then forgot about him. And now he's stuck in prison. Now, he may not know this, but as time go on, I'm pretty sure that he started the game like, dang, they done forgot about me. Now what I'm going to do? Well, Lord, I guess I'm here with you. So, real quick. Excuse me, y'all. Genesis 41, verse 8. The next morning, the Pharaoh ended up having dreams. The Pharaoh, two full years later, so now Joseph has been in prison 2 years. According to this text, 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. In his dream, he saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up on the river and began grazing at the marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up behind him from the Nile, but these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood beside the fat cows on the riverbank. So now we know that he's now having these dreams, these same dreams. The next morning, Pharaoh was disturbed by the dreams. So he called for all the magicians and the wise men of Egypt. When Pharaoh told them his dreams, not one of them could tell him what they meant. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke. Today I have been reminded of my failure, he told Pharaoh. Some time ago, you were angry with me. You were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the place of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was with the slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant. And everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as the cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Stood before the Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means. But I have heard that you here are about a dream. But I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. Again, Joseph says, it is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied. But God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. So see, that's why I say we have to keep our eyes on God, even when it's not looking right, even when it's a moment of chaos or confusion. Because even though when we think that somebody has forgot about us, when we have tried to put our marbles or try to put our trust into someone, we can say, okay, you know what, that failed me, but I still trust you, Lord. I'll still follow you. Thank you for reminding me again of who you are. Thank you for bringing me out. And Genesis 41:25 says, Joseph responded, both of the Pharaoh dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The seven healthy cows and the 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and the 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. This will happen just as I've had described it, for God has revealed to the Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt, but afterwards, there will be 7 years of famine, so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. The famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having 2 similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God, and he will soon make them happen. Okay. Okay. Oh, my bad. The Pharaoh gave Joseph. Okay, my bad, John. Joseph's suggestions were all received by Pharaoh and his officials. It's verse 37 of chapter 41. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man, so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent or as wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all of my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on the throne, will have rank higher than yours. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's fingers. He dressed him in fine linen clothes, and he hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command. And wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. And Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name, Zephanath. Yeah, I see. Zephanath. Y'all got it. Z. He also gave him a wife whose name was Asenath. She was the daughter of Potiphar, a priest of On. So Joseph took charge of the entire land of Egypt. So remember when that lady that was trying to sleep with him sat there and lied and said, hey, he tried to rape me, throw him in prison? Joseph could have missed out on his blessing. It says right here, then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name. He also gave him a wife whose name was Asenath. Man, we got to quit the dibbling and dabbling and jumping in. We got to trust the Lord. If the Lord said, I'll give you a wife, be patient. Women, if he said your husband is coming, well, Lord, I guess you're shaping him just perfect for me. We have to continue to trust him and continue that if he brought us this far, there's no way that he's just going to stop the promises that he's given me. There's no way that he's going to turn his back on me and leave me hanging. I was obedient. And High Pastor always said we can't talk about blessings without obedience. But because you were obedient, here's your blessing. So that brings me to my point 2. Stay grounded and trust me. See, it also says that Joseph waited 2 years, signifying that he still trusted the Lord. He still said, you know what, I will still continue to serve you. I won't turn my back. I won't sit there and say, well, Lord, what about this? You were supposed to do this for me. He said, no, I will sit here and I will trust you continuously. Joseph, it says in verse 51, Joseph named his older son Manasseh, am. For he said, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. Joseph named his second son Ephraim, for he said, God has made me fruitful in this land of grief. So even where it's chaotic, even where it's like, they put me here, but I wasn't supposed to be here. God said, no, I can still do something with that. I can still do something with you. I can still bring you out of that and still let me get the blessing in the midst of it. It says in 53, at last, the 7 years of bumper crops throughout the land of Egypt came to an end. Then the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph had predicted, the famine also struck all the surrounding countries. But throughout Egypt, there was plenty of food. Eventually, however, the famine spread throughout the land of Egypt as well. And when the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, he told them, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you. So with severe famine everywhere, Joseph opened up the storehouses and distributed grain to the Egyptians. For the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt, and people from all around came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe throughout the world. Now, another group of people that came just happened to be those brothers. Just so happened to be his brothers. So now, they don't realize that the person they're going to is their brother. To them, our brother's dead. He's gone. Our father believes that he's dead. So now we're going to continue. Genesis 42, it says, verse 1, when Jacob heard that grain was available in Egypt, he said to his sons, why are you standing around looking at one another? I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy enough grain to keep us alive, otherwise we'll die. So Joseph's 10 older brothers went down to Egypt to buy grain, but Jacob wouldn't let Joseph's younger brother Benjamin go with him for fear some harm might come to him. So Jacob's sons arrived in Egypt along with others to buy food, for the famine was in Canaan as well. So at this point, he's like, I'm not trusting him to go with y'all. Y'all already took one son. I'm not about to allow y'all to take this one. It says in verse 7, Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Where are you from? He demanded. From the land of Canaan, they replied. We have come to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him. And he remembered the dreams that he had about them many years before. He said to them, you are spies. You have come to see how vulnerable the land has become. No, my lord, they exclaimed. Your servants have simply come to buy food. We are all brothers, members of the same family. We are honest men, sir. We are not spies. Yes, you are, Joseph insisted. You have come to see how vulnerable the land has become. So I had to kind of do a little digging in the commentary to figure out, like, bro, if them your brothers, like, why are you sitting there acting like you don't know them? Now, as I continue to read, verse 18 says, on the third day, Joseph said to them, I am a God-fearing man. If you do as I say, you will live. If you really are honest men, choose one of your brothers to remain in prison. The rest of you may go home with grain for starving families, but you must bring the youngest brother back to me. This will prove that they are telling the truth. This will prove that they are telling the truth, and you will not die. To this they agreed. Now, at first he's going to throw them all in jail. But he made this condition with them. And when I looked in the commentary, it said that it seems to be that he wanted to bring them to repentance. He wanted them to realize what they had did wrong. But then I feel like also he was still hurt by what his brothers did to him. The ones that were supposed to be his brothers, that were supposed to look out for him, that were supposed to love him, the ones that were supposed to take care of him, the ones that we were supposed to have this brotherhood, have turned their back on him, have sat there and said, you know what? Let's get rid of him. It says, but when they stopped for the night, one of them opened his sack to get grain for his donkey. He found his money in the top of his sack. Look, he exclaimed to his brother, my money has been returned. It's here in my sack. Then their hearts sank. Trembling, they said to each other, what has God done to us? So now at this point, they worried. They worried because they're like, okay, we know what we did to our brother. Now this is just basically payback. This is just God getting on our head, about to make us pay for what we did. But he sent them back to get their brother. And in verse 43 says, but the famine continued to ravage the land of Canaan. When the grain they had bought from Egypt was almost gone, Jacob said to his sons, go back and buy us a little more food. And they said, bro, we not going back unless you give us little bro. Little bro got to come with us. He gave us simple instruction to bring him back or it's going to be problems. So unless you going to give us that son, give us our brother to go, there is no way we going. And then verse In Genesis 43, verse 21, it says, a feast at Joseph's place. But as we were returning home, we stopped for the night and opened us, and then we discovered it. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay. But as we were returning home, we stopped for the night and opened our sacks. Then we discovered that each man's money, the exact amount paid, was in the top of the sack. Here it is. We have bought it back with us. We also have additional money to buy food. We have no idea who put our money in our sacks. Relax. Don't be afraid. The household manager told them, your God, the God of your father, must have put this treasure into your sacks. I know I received your payment. Then he released Simon and brought him out to them. The manager then led the men to Joseph's palace, and he gave them water to wash their feet and provided food for their donkeys. They were told they would be eating there, so they prepared gifts for Joseph's arrival soon. When Joseph came home, he gave them gifts. When Joseph came home, they gave him the gifts they had brought him. They bowed low to the ground before him. After greeting them, he asked, how is your father, the old man you spoke about? Is he still alive? Yes, they replied, our father, your servant, aka really your dad, but you just don't know it yet. Our father, well, no, I guess he do know it. Yes, they replied, our father, your servant, is alive and well. And they bowed low again. Then Joseph looked at his brother Benjamin, the son of his own mother. Is this your youngest brother, the one who you told me about? Joseph asked. May God be gracious to you, my son. Then Joseph hurried from the room because he was overcome with emotions from his brother. He went into his private room when he broke down and wept. After washing his face, he came back, keeping himself under control. Then he ordered, bring out the food. It says the waiters in verse 32, the waiters served Joseph at his own table, and his brothers were served at a separate table. The Egyptians who ate with Joseph sat at their own table because the Egyptians despised Hebrews and refused to eat with them. Joseph told each of his brothers where to sit, and to their amazement, he seated them according to age, from oldest to youngest. And Joseph filled their place with food from his own table, giving Benjamin 5 times as much as he gave others. So they feasted and drank with him. So they feasted and drank with him. Now, in 44, and then I'll let y'all know why I'm mentioning all this. When his brothers were ready to leave, Joseph gave these instructions to his palace manager. Fill each of their sacks with as much grain as they can carry, and put each man's money back into his sack. Then put my personal silver cup at the top of the youngest brother's sack, along with the money from his grain. So the manager did just as Joseph instructed him. And I jump down to 44. Verse 24. So we returned to your servant, our father, and told him what you said, because they had then got caught that with the cup, the silver cup that he had placed in a bag, and sent his servants out, Joseph, to bring them back. And he said, so we returned to your servant, our father, and told him what you said. Later, when he said, go back again and buy us more food, we replied, we can't go unless our younger brother goes with us. We'll never get to see this man's face unless our younger brother is with us. Then my father said to us, as you know, my wife had 2 sons, and one of them went away and never returned. Doubtless he was torn into pieces by some wild animal. I have never seen him since. Now, if you take his brother away from me and any harm comes to him, you will send this grieving white-haired man to his grave. And now, my Lord, I cannot go back to my father without the boy. Our father's life is bounded up by this boy's life. If he sees that the boy is not with us, our father will die. We, your servants, will indeed be responsible for sending that grieving white-haired man to his grave. My Lord, I guarantee to my father that I will take care of the boy. I told him, if I don't bring him back to you, I will bear blame forever. So please, my Lord, let me stay here as a slave, and instead of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. For how can I return to my father if the boy is not with me? I cannot bear to see the anguish that it would cause my father. Now, at this point, Joseph had found out that, okay, this is my brother. He knows it's his brother. But his father, if he doesn't send his brother back, then he's dying. And at this point, Joseph's like, I can't take it no more. It says Joseph couldn't stand it no longer. There were many people in the room, and he said to his attendants, out all of you. So he was alone with his brothers when he told them who he was. Then he broke down and wept. He wept so loudly that Egyptians could hear him. And the word of it quickly carried to Pharaoh's palace. I am Joseph, he said to his brothers. Is my father still alive? But his brothers were speechless. They were stunned to realize Joseph was standing there in front of them. Please come closer, he said to them. So they came closer, and he said again, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. But don't be upset and don't be angry with yourself selling me to this place. It was God who sent me ahead of you to preserve your life. I say that again. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. See, one thing we got to understand is sometimes it's not about us. Sometimes we have to remove ourselves. And sometimes those same people that did us wrong, we're going to be called back to love them. To say, you know what, it's okay. Don't worry, it wasn't you, it was God. Or even if it was him, it don't matter. Because I got the heart of God, I still love you. I will still let you reap from what I have been blessed with. It says, this famine that has revenged the land for 2 years will last 5 more years, and there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive and to preserve many survivors. So it was God who sent me here, not you, and he is the one who made me an advisor to Pharaoh, the manager of this entire place and the governor of all of Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and tell him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me master over all the land of Egypt, so come down to me immediately. Then Joseph added in verse 12, look, you can see for yourselves and can my brother Benjamin, you can see for yourselves and so can my brother Benjamin, that I really am Joseph. Go tell my father of my honored position here in Egypt. Describe for him everything you have seen, and then bring my father here quickly. Weeping with joy, he embraced Benjamin, and Benjamin did the same. Then Joseph kissed each of his brothers and wept over them. And after that, they began talking freely with him. Point 3, giving victory. See, at the end of all our mess and our chaos and all that, like I said, there's a victory. And all we have to do is punch through some of those trials. All we have to do is continue to trust in the Lord and say, Lord, even though my strength is low, because I trust you, I will find a new strength, dear Father God. So if we continue to push, and we continue to trust him, but we continue to put him first in our lives, regardless of what the situation looks like, regardless of what other people say, regardless of what people try to say, you're not qualified for this, everything will work out as planned. Then Joseph, and now I'll repeat another thing in verse 15. Then Joseph kissed each of his brothers and wept over them. After that, they began talking freely. See, this is still a posture that we must have with those who hate us, with those who dislike us, with those who backstabbed us, with those who said they would do things for us, but they didn't. We still must continue to show them that same love that God showed us, still show them that same grace that God showed us, still show them that at the end of the day, even though that you were led by a different spirit, I can still love you. I can still show you what Jesus is like, and then allow them to go out and do the same thing.